chapter 5. I'm writing this at the end of my day of thinking and writing. And I want to talk about the emotional exhaustion that you feel. And it's not an exhaustion of doing anything physical. It's often this sort of, you kind of give up. And a lot of people don't talk about that. Right? They don't want to disclose when you're venturing and doing things that at some point you do feel down, that there are rhythms that happen, um, where you don't always have to be on all of the time. And I think that is the notion that is often sold is, if you were to think of a machine, the machine is that you're always moving, you're always functioning, you're always at the same rate. But even machines are not operating all of the time, and they fluctuate in terms of their output over time. Sometimes they're going much more stronger than others, depending on what is going on in in the machine shop, or what is going on with the tools that they're using. Things wear out, they break down, the oil starts not running as well. And that's what I want you to think about is that normal fluctuations and down moments is part of what you actually do when you venture, when you do things, is that at any given moment you might have, or any given day, you might have this sort of burst of, I'm super excited about this. But a lot of it is cyclical, where that burst of excitement only lasts very, very shortly. And you have, feelings of where you just don't want to do things very much. And what I've learned, at least for me, is to embrace those feelings, embrace everything about it, right? And use it as somewhat inspiration. So I don't know about you, but when I'm working, when I do this sort of venturing thing, and and it's doing things where I'm constantly negotiating in my head, and it's every minute I'm constantly negotiating that I need to focus on this particular task. And it is a negotiation. It's very much a decision at each moment where I'm doing that. And it's difficult often for me to push it away at all times, push the sort of the now, the present, the thing that entices me to go do something else. I have to actively push that away. And that is often emotionally exhausting to do that. A lot more than pursuing other tasks. And I think about that as, why is that the case? I don't have a good explanation. I don't think that there's really a good explanation other than, in order for me to feel a little bit better, and this is my thing that I think about, the only way that I feel better about doing different tasks and different things is to not take it so seriously. To view each step, each thing that I'm doing is play. And when there's those moments where I don't feel like doing something, I try to negotiate that that is okay in my head. And it is a struggle all the time, where I have to say, that's okay. that this thing is challenging. And that's part of what the venturing is all about. And if you were to look at people that do this a lot, right? Like try to make sure that they, all of these long-term decisions that we make require a significant amount of taking away from today and investing in the future. And every time you do that, it requires you to have this what's called self-regulation. And it's a term that's it's a term that's actually borrowed from machines and viewing the world in terms of machines. And the idea is that you have to manage this boundary between you and the world. And you try to manage that the best that you possibly can. So for me to manage this, yes, it's emotionally taxing, but the way that I feel less eaten up from it, I try to interpret the world as less harsh and contrasting and view it more as a play in that it's kind of fun or it's a game or there's silliness to it all. And despite the fact that I feel emotionally exhausted at any given time, as you're venturing and doing things, it makes it a little bit more easier for you to get back up to do it as you view yourself as a game. And you view what you're doing as a game, as a play, and not in a game like maybe some people get a lot out of it in terms of thinking about the world as, strategizing and all of that. I don't get that much out of it. I view my game as more silly. And every action that I'm doing is inconsequential. And it's only through the repeated actions of doing things that are inconsequential, that don't matter. It makes me do these things a little bit in an easier way. I can do something like this because I don't take it seriously, because I think that nobody else is listening on the other side, and I feel detached from what I'm actually doing. And I try to interact by being extraordinarily playful with myself and the world around me. So at any given moment, if things are feeling too much like work, I try to change what I'm doing so it doesn't feel that way. And it's hard because it actively requires you to engage and think about how you're actually feeling or what's the responses that you're having when you're doing any of these venturings. But at the same time, it's rewarding. I feel better when I try not to take anything too seriously. And that means sometimes going for a walk, sometimes shrugging off things. It's any number of different things, but it's all about interacting where I know any given moment that I'm doing doesn't matter that much. And it's the compounded effort of doing something for a long time that actually does matter and moves the deep needle. I wish that there was a better way of doing this. I don't know how to interact with the world in a different way where it doesn't feel as intense other than when I'm just playing and being as silly as I possibly can with words, with the world. One of the things I find challenging often is in interacting with people of higher status than me. That happens a lot now. And the way that I disengage from the stress of doing that, I simply say it's good enough. And I let the other people on the other side interpret what I'm trying to do. And if they respond negatively, it's on them. If it's positive, that's okay too. That means I can continue to interact with them in a much more robust way, I guess, or a repeated way. So I try not to, anything is less serious. And I try to view everything that I do as goofy and silly and a giant mistake as I possibly can without interpreting it as such, without interpreting that I'm doing is wrong or I shouldn't do this. The more that I just say, what the hell, and play, and think of that there isn't really a big significant cost with most things, the more I'm able to get up and repeat and go through those motions every day. All right, take care and have a wonderful day.